Get ready to uncover truths and reality of today's politics. Here's your host, Lori Mills.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Uncover California. Don't forget to like and subscribe us on Rumble, and also follow me at Lori Mills, the number 4, CA42 on X. You guys, it's been a crazy week, and President Trump is just going for it, and I'm so happy. From these executive orders, we're getting great people confirmed. He's getting rid of the deep state and the DOJ. People are being fired. The nonsense is going to end, and I'm super excited about that. As you guys know, J6 is a big deal to me, and watching the pardons warmed my heart, but the fight's not over yet, you guys. There's January 6 defendants in which, guess what? They're not letting them out of jail. And I will tell you right now, a presidential pardon is supposed to be immediate. I think these wardens and guards need to be held accountable for not following a direct order. So on our show today, I have a J6 defendant who you've never heard her story before, Kirsten. And again, an unjust prosecution and a woman whose life has been destroyed. Our second guest is going to be Dave Sumrall. Dave is with Just Stop Hate, and he's been on the show before, and he's going to let us know what's going on with these hostages that these jails are refusing to release. Right now, as you guys know, I'm never letting go of January 6th. When President Trump pardoned the J6ers, that was supposed to be immediate, and that hasn't happened for everybody. So we'll be getting into that a little later. Right now, I want to tell another J6 story. Well, I don't want to tell it. I want to let a J6er tell it. Kirsten Niemela, thank you so much for coming on. Tell everybody, who are you and what were you up to before January 6th?
So I actually did construction. I've owned my own business doing automotive detailing. Before 2016, I had never voted before.
Wow.
I didn't care for politics. It was personal experiences that I went through with some family members pertaining to DCYF that really promoted me to get into all of this. And then I started protesting certain things. I started seeing the insanity of the LGBTQ alphabet mafia, as I call it, and all of the, grooming of children. And then, I voted for Trump. And ever since 2016, I've been doing flag waves, convoys, speaking out for Trump and what we need for this country. And then I went to January 6th.
And we'll get there. We'll get there. I totally relate to what you're saying about the LGBTQ XYZ mafia. I've got a lot of gay friends. And most of my gay friends, they are totally against what has gone on with this. And I also relate to you in the sense, before 2011, I was totally apolitical. So basically, you were angry and you just started practicing your First Amendment right. What brought you to the Capitol on January 6th? I'm sure you went to the Ellipse. Tell me the story of how that day progressed for you.
So I actually had gone to the Stop the Steal a few weeks prior. And it was, aside from at night when Antifa came out and was attacking people, it was very peaceful. And, I've watched the Proud Boys get smeared all over the internet. And to be honest, I didn't know any members of the Proud Boys. But what I do know is when I was at the Stop the Steal rally, it was me and 4 of my friends that were all females that, they saw us walking down in the dark and trying to get back to the hotel. And a group of them actually got us back to our hotel safely. And I didn't know any of them.
And I had Zuni Tario on a couple weeks ago. I'm hoping to get Enrique on next week. I didn't know who the Proud Boys were either. But I remember when the whole thing went on in Oregon and Washington State, And those guys were the ones that were defending the public. And so, yeah, I hear you there. I think they've been smeared and they don't deserve the smear that they've gotten. So you go to the Ellipse, go on. Sorry to interrupt you.
So then I decide to go to January 6th. And I stayed at the Ellipse for Trump's entire speech. Although the court documents will tell you I was one of the first people to breach the Capitol. I'm like, look at the timeline. That doesn't even add up. You know, unfortunately for me, I had no intentions on going in the building. I was actually quite a ways away in a tree, just recording videos of the crowd. And unfortunately, the same co-defendant that turned against me and took a plea agreement and cooperated with the government happens to be the reason I went in the building to begin with.
Interesting.
So it's been a bit of a wild ride. So like I said, I mean, I met so many amazing people. I mean, we stood there from like 5 a.m. till Trump was done, like never went to the bathroom, nothing. Like, I mean, you couldn't move. There was
Right.
no cops, no fights, no nothing. You know, and we wanted to have our voices heard. We went down to the Capitol. We know that there were a bunch of permits pulled for that day. People were supposed to be speaking. And you get there and there's already thousands of people on the lawn. You know, but the documents will tell you that, oh, I went through police fencing. The fencing was already gone by the time I got there. And I don't consider, you know, in one of my videos, not where I entered the lawn, but if you look in some of the videos, you'll see like the mesh, you know, that you put around a chicken coop or, you know, to block off a construction. I mean, that having a little mini sign on it was useless when you look at what they put up, you know, last week. It's just mind blowing that it just all these signs point to such entrapment. Like we already know Nancy Pelosi, her involvement. We've seen the body cam footage of the police even saying that they were set up. You know, we haven't even unfolded all of the Fedsurrection and all the undercover feds that were breaking windows, encouraging people to go in. So,
Well,
like I
and
said,
it's,
I
I'm
went to go
sorry.
find my co-defendant, and unfortunately, she was going in regardless. She was a single mom with 2 kids that my mom was babysitting. So I made, you know, what I thought to be a good friend, protective friend decision to not make, you know, make sure nothing happened to her. And that turned around and bit me in the ass when she then turned against me, wrote lies and false statements, you know, cooperated with the government for other indictments. And, you know, it's been a sad situation.
Well, I will get to that part. As far as security, I honestly think, yes, you were entrapped. Every video that I've seen of Antifa changing in the bushes, feds breaking the windows and pulling down the glass so people would go through the windows. I think 100% that J6 helped Democrats more than it ever helped Republicans because they were able to stop the debate on the floor. And I stand by it today. I think that 2020 was stolen, and I have the constitutional right to say so. So your friend, your co-defendant, you guys were there, you're in a tree, and all of a sudden, how does she get you to go inside? And had the breach already happened? And what was your perspective? Because this is another thing that I think they used to entrap you, is when they shot tear gas and munitions into the center and back of a crowd, a peaceful crowd, which people panicked and the rest happened. Tell me your perspective on that and what happened once you got to the door of the Capitol. What did you do while you were in the Capitol? And what was your experience with that whole thing?
So, like I said, I was in a tree pretty far away, and my boss had traveled to DC with me. And while I'm recording a video, he's like, oh, hey, you know, Stephanie took off. And I was like, what? So now I'm in a crowd of thousands of people. I haven't personally seen any violence because I was to the left of the scaffolding. So everything that was happening was in the center. So I never saw people fighting.
Right.
So I start walking towards the building, and my boss was with me. And next thing I know, I turned to look for him, and he's gone because he got hit with one of those smoke grenades.
Wow.
So now I'm like in a crowd of people. Now I'm using my phone and I'm trying to stand up on whatever I can find to use my phone to scope the crowd and try to find her. Well, I end up finding her, right at the end of the scaffolding. She's smiling and laughing and, oh, we're going up, blah, blah. So we go up to the building. She was going to go in regardless. And, I just made a choice to go in. All of my video evidence is me third in line holding on to her. Um, and my phone died 11 seconds after I got in. You see me on CNN walking through the ropes. I never actually touched a wall, a person. I didn't vandalize. They don't even have me chanting. I was moving with a crowd once we got to a certain point. Couldn't even tell you where because there's so many parts in the Capitol that I've never been in the Capitol.
Right.
Um,
And I'm sure
we
you're
got
amazed looking around at all the history and loving your country and going, oh my gosh, look at this. I mean, I would be amazed. I've never been in the Capitol.
Yeah, I was pretty amazed. So as we're
Yeah.
walking through, there's, hundreds of us in a hallway, and we come up to a couple of officers and a couple of the protesters. I mean, they had their arms around the cop. They're sitting there having these conversations. Now, mind you, domestic terrorists, as they call us, were standing still in a hallway for like 5 minutes, you know, not doing anything violent, not assaulting cops. And then, so they talk for a couple of minutes, and then all of a sudden, this protester standing right next to a cop gets on a bullhorn and tells us, all right, the police are going to let us go through. Everybody, just no violence, stay calm. So at any point in time, that cop could have taken that bullhorn and corrected him if that's not what he said. But they sat there talking, and then the crowd starts pushing. So because you're in a crowd of people, you know,
It's like
you're
at a rock
automatically,
concert, like a rock
yeah,
concert where everybody's pushing forward to get close to whoever's up front.
yeah. So then, I was in the building for like 22 minutes, I think. So we're walking around and, we get to a point where it's kind of like the Ashley Babbitt scene.
Oh,
And that was actually the point where I grabbed both of my co-defendants and I said, listen, we did not come here for this. We are leaving. Um, but the sad thing is that one of my co-defendants would have testified to that. The other one, painted it like I planned the whole thing. Oh yeah, and she
well,
wouldn't
you
testify.
know what? I'm almost positive they probably threatened her. They probably threatened to take her children. If you don't do this, you're going down. We're going to nail you for 20 years. I mean, I've seen that with so many J6ers where, they're sitting there, take the poisonous plea deal. I go to jail for 4 months or I fight the case. We go $200,000, $300,000 in debt and I could go away for 20 years. So, I mean, ridiculous. I think the treatment, even judiciously, that you guys have had. So, from there, you leave. Do you make it home? What was your experience? Did you get the raid with the 15 long guns in your face? What happened?
So we left. I say we were back at our hotel by 4 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were continuing to watch it all on the TV. And then the following day was when I lost my Facebook. So that's when I knew, like, I started hearing about them arresting people and all these things. So they actually waited over a year, January 18th of the following year, to actually arrest me. But months leading up to that, they had gone to my mom's house, questioned her. They went to my best friend's house, threatening to charge her with obstruction of justice, questioning her. And then they actually set up an entrapment with my local police. And I was on my way to work to go to my boss's house. And a Hudson cop got behind me And I didn't think anything of it at the time. I wasn't doing anything wrong. So I pull into my boss's house. He pulls in behind me and says, license and registration. And I said, for what? And he said, you were kind of speeding. And I said, you and I both know I wasn't speeding. So as soon as he looked at my license was when he, grabbed me by the arm and said, I have a warrant for your arrest. And then all of a sudden my boss's house got swarmed with like, I don't know, at least 7 cars, undercover cops, local cops, and the FBI. They wouldn't let me tell my boss anything. They threatened to throw me on the ice. They were manhandling me, even though I told them, I'm not resisting, but I have a bad shoulder. You don't need to have my shoulders up behind my head when I'm telling you that you're hurting. There's no reason for it. I mean, I'm
Right.
charged with, at this point, I don't know what I'm charged with, but they knew what my charges were, and that they were just misdemeanors. So then I go to the marshals. I sit there in handcuffs and shackles, and they made me pee in a cup, which I thought was really strange. Apparently, that's what happens when you get arrested for federal crimes. Um, I think it was just another way for them to harass us as far as being able to, implement drug testing, all these different things that they did. So then I went to court at 4 o'clock that afternoon, and they had asked for an ankle monitor. And the New Hampshire judge actually said, New Hampshire doesn't really do ankle monitors. Why would you ask for that? Well, she's lived in other states. She has family in other states. And the judge is like, yeah, but I mean, the crime happened over a year ago.
Right. She's
So,
so dangerous. She waited a year.
yeah, so she didn't grant it. Then it was, I got, you know, deplatformed. I couldn't go to certain contractor jobs that I had because they worked for the federal government. And even though they believed me, they were feeling the pressure of their employer, with surrounding themselves with, labeled as domestic terrorist.
Well, they do everything to destroy you. That's what I've seen. Like, they want to make sure you don't work again. They want to make sure that your neighbors see, some form of high drama going, ooh, bad person. I mean, they have painted you guys worse than Al Qaeda at this point. It's absolutely mind blowing and disgusting. So, what has this done to your life?
Um, Everything. I mean, I've gone 584 miles from home to a medium, which is essentially a maximum for women, in West
How long?
Virginia.
How long were
Eight
you in
months,
jail? Okay.
8 months for misdemeanors.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Um, I know that's one of the more lengthier sentences. It was actually 11 months, but I programmed and took classes and got out early because of Trump enacting the First Step Act.
Right.
Um, So yeah, I mean, I've gone to prison. Never been to prison before in my life. That was a horrible experience. Down to firing 3 different attorneys, getting screwed by every single one of them. I lost my job. I've lost my reputation. I still haven't been able to find a successful, steady job. I'm actually now living in a camper in the dead of winter in New Hampshire, in my friend's backyard, and trying to pick up the pieces. And, although I'm grateful for a pardon, the ones who have already done our time, we're not getting our charges dismissed like others.
Why
Fighting to get
not?
it expunged.
Why not?
From what we've been told, that pardon does not expunge our record.
Interesting. That's not
So
right.
basically, what we've been told is that it's basically you're guilty, but we forgive you. Which for a lot of us that went through the appeal process, like I filed a pro se appeal, which at the very last minute before it was ruled on or heard, my 3 panel judges switched. So I had like 2 Obamas and 1 Biden. I was never gonna win my appeal. Um, so for us that fought it all the way through, took it to trial, appealed it, did our time, I mean, the pardon only got me off probation 3 months early. I had already served prison time, probation, paid my fines. And although I'm thankful for a pardon, unless the Trump administration or the pardon attorney has more information, everything that we've gathered as a community, if you had already been convicted, so the people that were pending, they're now dismissing their charges.
Right. Like my friend Siaka, they dismissed his
Yeah.
case on the 21st.
So from what we've gathered is it is not coming off of our record that is a whole different process, which,
Wow.
you have to motion the same court that indicted us.
Right.
So, and some of these judges, we've seen their statements. We've seen how they've been acting, refusing to let people out. So I'm just hoping that the pardons are just the start of our justice. I mean, there needs to be fair compensation. And things need to be scrubbed off the internet or something. Like our charges need to be sealed, expunged, whatever, because that, the
It
same reason we
follows
couldn't
you.
find a job before is not going to change just because someone sees that we got a pardon.
Right. What was your trial like? Like, tell me about your trial, because I've heard a lot of misconduct in the trials. Who was your judge and how was your jury? And did they withhold exculpatory evidence in your case?
Yes. So they withheld evidence. They denied me some of my witnesses. David Sumrall actually was supposed to come. They refused him. They refused some of my friends that, drove all the way to DC, flew in, wasn't allowed in the courtroom until it was their turn. And then they waited till the very last minute and said, oh, never mind. My co-defendant was their number one witness. And they waited till last minute and said, we're not going to have her testify unless you do. So we took a recess and I told my lawyers that I wanted to testify because they did an absolute horrible job in my trial. Everything down from the people that were selected for my jury, the fact that my own attorneys messed up on the numbers and dismissed the wrong juror, and the judge wouldn't allow them to fix it. Their personal, the judge's personal opinions. He actually gave me a harsher sentence because he went off the record and watched a podcast that I did. And I wore a t-shirt that said, "End the silence, save the children," and told me he was going to go with what the probation was asking for, which was 8 months, but then decided that I was detached from reality and spreading false conspiracies that children are being trafficked.
As we currently have 350,000 missing migrant children from the Biden administration. And that information comes from the president of Border Patrol and the former chief Border Patrol agent and an HHS whistleblower, Tara Lee Rodas. That is not a lie. It's true. Wow.
Well, we're not allowed our First Amendment rights in these courtrooms. I mean, most judges have already said that cannot be your defense. They already shot down entrapment. They dictate how your trial is going to go. And it was a complete miscarriage of justice. I've never seen anything like it.
Wow.
I think that if we were granted the change of venues that we all filed for, we would have had a much different outcome in our home states, or even, a different state out of DC. I mean, DC, nobody was going to get a fair trial.
No, they weren't. And it's such a shame. What's next for you, Kirsten? Like, you must be, this has been 4 years of absolute hell for you, I'm sure. You're in a camper in your friend's backyard. How can people help you? How can people surround you? And, are you in debt from all of this? What kind of job would you be looking for if somebody's out there hiring?
Yeah, so I would love to relocate to Tennessee. And I've kind of put the call out on some of my social medias. Like I said, I've worked on cars, I detail cars. I'm a very hands-on, I've done minor plumbing, electrical, construction. So I'm not afraid to get my hands dirty. Most people that know me know that I work harder than anybody they know. But so it's been kind of defeating knowing like I've lost everything that I had. I'm just, if anybody could donate to my Give, Send, Go, my truck's having problems. That's my only means of transportation. I got quoted $3,500 to fix it. So I've kind of just been driving it real careful, hoping that nothing else happens. I'm on my third transmission. It was the one thing that I was able to keep because of how hard I worked before I went to prison.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the donations that I have gotten all pretty much came from before I went to prison. And that was paying for lawyers, paying to go to DC, um, a lot of things. So, I'm not one to ask for help. Unfortunately, this situation has forced me to, ask for it. And I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that, good people do good things and it all comes full circle.
Yeah. Well, and
So,
I think if you did go to Tennessee, you probably have a lot better luck out there. They seem to be very conservative and they seem to understand what has happened with the
yeah.
January 6th incident. Tell everybody, what is your Give, Send, Go address? I'm going to ask Eric to put it up for us so people will be able to see it. We'll put it under your picture during the episode. But what is your Give, Send, Go so people can go there and donate? And you guys, nothing's too small. If you can do $25, if you can do $100, if you've got some money, it's time to stand up for our fellow Americans who have been treated so unjust. So go ahead. What is your
So
Give,
it's
Send, Go?
www.givesendgo/free Kirsten, Kirstyn.
Okay, so everybody write that down and let's help these people that their lives have been destroyed over lawfare. Kirsten, are you on social media at all, or is there anywhere someone can find you on social media?
Yep. So I'm on X. It's Patriot for Truth 6. And then I'm on TikTok and it's MAGA Patriot 6.
Okay, so everybody go and follow her. I want to thank you so much for coming on. Keep in touch. If you have any updates, we're always happy to put you back on. I'm never letting go of January 6th until the narrative is broken and there's accountability, even for those that have been pardoned: Adam Schiff, Benny Johnson, Liz Cheney. So thanks for coming on, and everybody stay tuned. After our commercial break, we're going to bring in Dave Sumrall, who's going to update us on J6ers who are not being let out of jail. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the MAGA Mall. We have the largest selection of the finest quality MAGA caps and Trump caps that are made. We have over 250 hats and 1,000 different products in 28 product categories. All the caps are made from premium cotton twill. Everything on them is embroidered. As a matter of fact, in the last election cycle, we donated over 45,000 caps to Trump-endorsed candidates and conservative causes all the way across America. And you can buy any of our products by going to our website. It's at themagamall.com, like on the sign over here, and use promo code CALI, and that's for Uncover California. That will get you a 10% discount off of all of our products and also help this worthy cause. And remember, it's always a MAGA day at the MAGA Mall.
Welcome back, everybody. Now I get to introduce once again one of my favorite friends and somebody who has kept us updated on January 6th and everything that has gone on for the last 4 years. Dave Sumrall, welcome back to Uncover California.
It is good to see you once again. Still alive, still kicking, and we're ready to keep fighting for these last couple of people.
Tell me what's going on. You know, it's my understanding that when a president issues a pardon, it should be immediate. And then I started hearing stories that there were prisoners not being released, like DC. I mean, they didn't release people. And then I saw some guy taken out on a stretcher. I don't know where he was. What happened the night of the pardons? Like, what happened?
There seemed to be a little confusion, for one, of course, as we know. There was pushback from the prisons that we expected. There's always going to be a little, not only push and shove at times that I believe happened, but we found the Bureau of Prisons played the shell game with a couple of these guys, shipped them out, sent them to other states. They're on, the diesel therapy program that we talk about so much. They bounce them to a couple different prisons. And why? There's no reason other than to hide these people. So we're really anxious. And you nailed it. Actually, you said release them. Well, that's the language that was in the pardon. Trump, to his best knowledge, was doing the right thing by saying it that way. I want them released immediately. But then they held us to the wording. And if you weren't in prison yet, then it didn't matter. So we still need to arrest you and you still need to serve your term, because he wasn't talking about you because you weren't in prison. So how could you be immediately released? And we've had people have to file motions to keep from self-surrendering. We have people that are on probation still that shouldn't be. We still have monitoring. We still have check-ins. None of that should be a part of it. They got the language a little bit wrong. Unfortunately, they didn't study what we had done for such a long period of time for the Pardon Project. So we're trying to get word to them that we need some addendums, another proclamation, basically, that explains what the necessity was and what it was supposed to do. The pardon of innocence would have been perfect, and I just don't think he got that memo.
Well, that's too bad. I do know that in the final paragraph of the pardon, it basically did state that all pending cases needed to be dismissed. After talking to Kirsten, she brought up another problem, and that is they're not removing the criminal record from these people. So if they go to get a job, it comes up. So I want to roll back a little bit, though, and we will talk about that too, but I do want to roll back a little bit and talk about those that are not being released. And I get that they're sending them here and there. I personally would have loved to see the president send in the marshals and the National Guard and arrest the warden and whoever's holding it up. But that's just me, But what did you see the night of? And how many prisoners are they still holding? Or should I say hostages?
Hostages, I think, would be the usage right now. It's funny that you say that. There's 10, maybe 11 left. We're waiting anxiously from a lot of different people. But you said the funny thing. You said send the marshals in to get these last. We think the marshals, but guess who's bouncing them from state to state? The marshals. So
they should be fired. They should be fired, just like the DOJ, where they're cleaning house right now. These marshals that are not obeying the commander-in-chief need to be fired.
Do they need to be fired, or do they need to be immediately imprisoned? I mean, this is where I am with this. Look at the way they treated Sixers. They hunted them down. They put them in prison years before their trial. They held them because they were a danger, like they might hurt someone, or because they might be a flight risk when they were poor. They couldn't go anywhere. So we saw the torture. We saw the campaign. Now that the roles are reversed, immediately imprison the judges, the prosecutors, the FBI agents, the marshals, the prison officials, the board, everyone involved, the select committee should all go to jail.
Yes.
For at least 4, 5, 6, 7 years while we do the investigation. They said this was the biggest investigation in history. So it needs the biggest investigation. And those judges, the way those judges, people and the prosecutors and the media, everyone went along, they are an obvious threat to the lives of people in the public. It's a necessity to hold them in prison until we get to the bottom of this.
Well, I know I swore an oath to the Constitution a few times, and it says to protect us against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And we seem to have a lot of domestic terrorists, and they're not J6ers. This goes back 8 years. Let's not kid ourselves. With Hillary Clinton wiping her laptop and her phone, smashing them with hammers. The targeting of Donald J. Trump for a lie that was a dossier made up in a bar over beers, according to Subsource One. John Brennan, James Clapper, the full throttle of the FBI trying to take down a president. And last time I checked, that's treason. So this has been going on for a very long time. The difference is with January 6th, they wanted to stop the debate on the floor in any way possible. And then they went after the people of America. They went after them with full force, with no mercy. And I think that they all should be held accountable, including those that Biden pardoned. For if they didn't commit a crime, why did they need a pardon?
Well, the question becomes, if pardons for innocent people don't matter, then why do pardon guilty people? We should arrest all the people that were pardoned until we straighten it out. And look, if Biden's illegitimate from 2020, none of his pardons mattered anyway. So we don't want a repeat of Trump's first presidency. I mean, it was grand and glorious, but they undid everything he did in 5 minutes, and there was no mark in the history book that said they had done anything wrong. This time, we don't want another Hillary.
Right.
Lock her up. Lock her up, and then he doesn't lock her up. We need to see these people go to prison, a lot of them for life, a lot of them for worse. And that's the mark that needs to be left, because this was the most important thing in our history. People still have not understood the depth of this whole plot and scheme. And Trump, in his innocence, still believes it's all about him and that he did all this and he saved the Constitution. He took a bullet. They murdered us. They made us kill ourselves. Tortured us. They drug us out for years. They threw the entire weight of the federal government against individual poor Americans. And it's not all about you, sir. And that's where we are today. Know that he pardoned them a week ago and they're still in. Some of them at all is not acceptable. We need to get the verbiage tightened up on that. And he needs to declare them as heroes. He blew the opportunity to have black limousines and private jets for all of these heroes, because he doesn't understand the heroes that they are and what they did and what they sacrificed for this country and for freedom. I hope he gets that memo. Maybe somebody will share this with him and he'll understand where we're coming from.
Yeah, and that's just the thing. Do you know anybody that has his ear? Because I think President Trump will do the right thing. I think he already thinks he did the right thing. And there is a very big possibility that nobody's telling him that there's still people in prison, because I think it would tick him off. I really do. I don't think he would be happy with being ignored. But you're absolutely right with this cabal. This cabal of entrenched bureaucrats. I believe that if they don't pay for the crimes that they've committed over the last 8 years, they'll do it again. They'll never stop.
They will never stop. And in 4 years, they'll do what he did again, and they'll come after him again. That's the way it works. But you have to understand who was whispering in Trump's ear, don't talk about these J6ers during your big unification speech. Make that peaceful and historic. Don't talk about bad things. And Trump said, yeah, maybe you're right. The old Trump would have said, don't tell me to talk about something. I'm going to talk about it twice. So I'm kind of fearful that the people in his ear don't understand gravity of January 6th, or trying to use that to give him this golden era presidency. He did everything and took credit for it all. That's the way it works. He gave the power to the people. The people took that power and used it. The government came after us. He needs to acknowledge that if he does anything during his presidency, honestly.
Well, again, I think that we're in a situation where he needs to hear it. Yeah. He needs to hear from the people, because I know that there's been congressional hearings with other J6ers, John Strand and other people that had been wrongly prosecuted. President Trump is so busy. And we need someone who's going to tell him the truth. And I don't know who that person's going to be. But the one good thing is I do know that Pam Bondi has said that she's going to go through every one of these cases. And one of the reasons, and J.D. Vance brought it up the other day, that Trump did do this blanket pardon is because of the unconstitutional treatment of the hostages. So, that's why he was able to, with anybody. You guys didn't run a legal process here. You basically were a Stasi court. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think two things. We did get the point. It needed to be an individual case by case. We always steered the against a blanket pardon because we didn't want people to use that against him. Oh, you pardoned all these innocent, all these guilty, violent people, and just throw us all in one deplorable basket as usual. But to say case by case means what J.D. Vance said. They did not get due process. They did not get process. They did not get the Constitution, their rights honored in a court system. They were cheated that opportunity, so they never had a fair trial. We're coming out with a film Saturday, and it's called Pardon Us, Justice for All, and it explains everything about the weaponization of the DOJ, the judges, the prosecutors, the FBI raids, the way they tortured America. And it's the after explanation of what we're experiencing up to the moment of the pardon and how it all worked and why it was necessary for the pardon to correct the courts that wouldn't self-correct and the jury not correct the judges like the system's supposed to work, because we didn't have a jury here. So it's a really interesting concept, and I hope that people will watch it and share it, mainly so that those that don't understand what happened get a really good idea.
Well, and we've talked about this before. You know that I'm going to share anything that you share. I will push out your content till no end. But, it's one of those things that we're still dealing with the fake news and The View, the ladies of The View. Bad View.
Let me make one point real quick. You're all over my, and I love it. If we won the war, we get to write the history books. But if we don't know what happened, we're not going to record it correctly so people remember. They said this was an unprecedented event. Why were they saying that? Because we had never been attacked like this by our own government. It was our own TN square. We have to get that point across to the public, or they will never understand what happened, why, and it won't prevent it from happening again. That's the main point.
Yeah, well, and that's my whole point with, we've got all this fake news that are pushing their narratives again. At some point, I would like to see this get in front of every American. Somehow, some way, these lies and this mass psychosis that they have spread to the left. I mean, people are waking up, but we need a great awakening. We need every single American to see how much they've been lied to, because I really believe that once you know that you've been lied to and you really grasp that and you're not trying to say, oh, but I don't like being wrong, something happens inside of you. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. And it is so important that this narrative is broken. And I don't know how President Trump does that. I had mentioned the last time you were on this show that we should do the emergency broadcast network. Right. Let's put on the War on Truth. Let's put on Timeline. Let's put on these films. Even with other things like the border. I would love people to know what's really going on at our border. Selena Gomez crying the other day. Oh, the poor kids. Girl, there are 350,000 missing migrant children sold into the sex trade on your watch. On your watch. Those are the kids that I'm worried about. Ooh, I could go on this one for a long time. You better back me off it.
I tell you, this is something that's going to really help with the education process. We're going after the prosecutors.
Oh, wait, you broke up right there. Say that again.
So we're going to do our best to help educate the public as we move forward. We're going after judges. We're going after the prosecutors that did this. And we have what we need as far as evidence of their bias and prejudice and treatment. There is no question as to if that happened or not. It's a matter is it a two-tier legal system? Will we ever find justice? So we're going to do everything we can to save the people wrongly imprisoned, the people that we were there that weren't as guilty as this system said they were. And it's a travesty that we were never involved in. We didn't know. You can't put good American people in that position and not expect them to expose your crime, get out, because they don't belong there. They're not staying there, and they will get out again and tell everyone what they experienced. And that is next, everyone. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Now the guys that they're still holding, and I don't know if there's girls too. You say there's 11. Do we know their background? Why is the system trying to hold these people? What do they just don't like them? Or they just have a beef? Like, do you know their background? Who are these people?
Yes, I do. And one of them in particular, Jeremy Brown, probably everybody's heard his name. He's the one that the special force, the FBI, came to him before January 6th, tried to
Yes.
recruit. So there's a deeper element to his story. And then it goes from the federal charges to state charges before DC and Florida. There's a lot of confusion intentionally in and he's being shipped around as we speak. He's one of those getting diesel therapy right now.
Well,
So
let's talk about his case really quick because I think that that's important. And I don't want people that don't really know a lot of the J6 stories to gloss over that. This guy was asked by the FBI to be an undercover informant, and he said no. Tell his story.
they came to his door. Now he's ex-special forces, decorated, got all this experience, years and years in the special forces, and knows all these different ops. And they came to his house and knocked on his door, basically said, "Hey, we want you to consider come do a little thing for us and all this stuff." And he's like, "What? January 6th, we got this thing." And he's like, "Yeah, no, I'm not interested in that." Interestingly, caught it on his ring cam. And then they came back in and spoke to him. So he saw January 6th. He was there doing security as well. Never went in the building or anything. But afterwards said, "This was an op, and I need to release the fact that they tried to recruit me for this. And they have persecuted him for that ever since. They don't want people to tell their dirty secrets. And that's a big one. And, so now that helps expose. And if that had ever gone to trial during, people would have learned all these things before. So they bounce until after, kind of like Jake Lang never made it to trial. These guys.
So he's in jail and he's never been to trial.
He's been to trials, but he's never had, you know what I'm saying? He's been charged. He's had proceedings as far as guilty or innocent. Can we finish this thing? No. And that's where a lot of guys were in limbo. Now, the second people that are not being released, it was that language. We had a guy have to self-surrender last week after the pardon. 2 days after the pardon, had to turn himself into prison because of the language. And he had a secondary charge. Now, if you picked up a state charge, let's just say the FBI comes to raid my house and they find something that shouldn't be here, whether it's a gun or weed or whatever it is. It's your life, whatever. And they use that as a secondary charge. We have you up for a state charge. You shouldn't have had this gun. It wasn't registered to you or whatever it is. Then that's not the felony. The president can't do anything about a state charge. So they want to hold that, get that pound of flesh and torture you and say, but it's fruit of the poison tree. If they'd never been there for the J6 raid, they would have never found that gun, that weed or whatever it was that they're for. So it all happened that way. And President Trump, bless his heart, missed the language in that. The pardon of innocence that we did for Flynn is what we needed because it sets the slate. It allows you to, Flynn's a hero. Everybody's a hero. Maybe if he just got a pardon, just be one of us that still has a target on his back from the DOJ. Who knows?
Wow. Well, and it's weird because some cases are being dismissed, like Siaka's. His case is dismissed. But again, my concern is the J6ers are still, are they still on no-fly watch lists? Are they still being on a terrorist watch list? What is the situation with that?
So they are actually, some are, some aren't. I've had different people go through TSA. Some have been searched and pulled aside. Some have walked through security and felt like they've never felt, but not everybody. And even people that weren't J6ers that were helping with the mission to bring them home, traveling to help, and they were singled out at every checkpoint, the whole 9 yards. That's, we kind of see this. But what happened to Matthew Huddle, that got shot last Sunday, a J6er.
Wait, tell me about this. I don't even know about this. What happened?
This is horrible. So one of the J6ers that just received a pardon, I believe, but he had been released back in 23, got pulled over on a traffic stop and got into an altercation with the sheriff. They say he resisted arrest. They say he had a weapon. They say that he used or brandished or anything, but there's a lot of mystery. But he had an altercation with the sheriff in Indiana, and they shot him, and he died.
Do we have body cam footage of this?
Not yet. No body cam, no dash cam. The sheriff was put, or the deputy put on leave, administrative leave, while they investigate. And here's my thought, and it's conjecture, sure, but it's
Yeah,
not.
I want to see the body cam footage.
But just the other day, we had another young lady, a J6er, that was surrounded by troopers, and 7 different officers popped up on her because she still had this terrorist warning when they ran her name. So I'm afraid that the policeman saw this enhancement, this alert, and was fidgety to begin with. And then you have a guy that says, man, I went to prison. I'm not going back. I'm not doing this. I didn't do anything wrong. Get away from me. And it escalated, and the guy, who knows? And will we ever find out? This is the thing. I've looked at thousands and thousands of hours of video. I've looked at death more than I've wanted to from every angle in detail, and I don't want to see that. And they're still killing J6ers because of the label that the government put on. I can't do that anymore.
It's insane, David. It's insane. Again, yeah, I don't want to judge that instance because I don't know what happened. I would like to see the video for sure. Who else is still in jail?
Oh, we've got a handful of people, names pending because, they're still working on these cases from the inside. Now, we did get our letter up the chain, so hopefully Trump is seeing this proclamation that we wrote that would fix everything. It's really a simple, he could sign the bottom of this and rewrite it and claim it for himself. We don't care. Just get it done and get people home. Everybody's free. Nobody's free. And his golden era can't begin until he finishes what he started with this.
Yeah, and he can't care what the media says about it either. They can pound sand.
Or his advisors, he needs to tell them as well. But maybe he needs to just talk to you and you can explain things to him.
Yeah, well, and again, his whole administration's still being installed, so we're gonna have to see how that all goes. So, did you ever hear anything? What happened? Who was the guy on the night that the pardons happened that he was being wheeled out on a stretcher? Who was that guy? Do you know anything about him?
Yeah, I'm not sure if I know or if I would be able to say if I knew any extenuating circumstances around that. Yeah, that's one of those situations that maybe somebody got antsy and maybe I don't know which charges which way. I don't know what's going on with that. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot of people were wound up pretty tight waiting for the president's word. It was almost like he was gaslighting us. He was, oh yeah, I'm going to do it. Oh yeah, I'm going to do it. But he never said, I'm going to do it the first day so these people will be home that night. If he'd have said that 6 months ago or 3 weeks ago, that'd have been great. People could have geared up. Instead, we had volunteers at 80 different facilities around the country waiting, hoping that he kept his word. They were actually, because it was MLK Day, a holiday, and we knew they were short-staffed at the prisons, that they were going to make it on us, and they did. And we waited in the freezing cold, midnight the first night, some people till 3, some all night. The next day, they've been releasing people slowly until this last 10. And y'all just keep putting the heat on everybody you can that it's not right until it's all right. That's our message.
Yeah, I heard it was a recording of a phone conversation where they were actually calling the DC jail, and they said, I think her name was Rachel, and they said, you told us to be here at 3 a.m, or she'd be out in the snow and cold with no shoes. And so they went to pick her up, and then they never released her. 7 a.m., they were still getting the runaround. And I don't think she was released till way later in the day.
No, that's the way they did. I was waiting at prison in Texas. You start getting the word at 7:30, 8 o'clock that they're going to start processing, but it might take a while. And they push it to the limit under the legal law. They have to have them out by midnight. They're supposed to. And this prison did. I was able to take Big O, the guy that put his feet up in Pelosi's office. I was able to get him back to his family. It was really great for me to experience, being in the battle and having that closure. I was never arrested, never went, but I was in there with them, you know what I'm saying? And it was just so good to be able to do that, see that reunion and see somebody get freedom. We went straight from the big house to the Waffle House, man. He wanted Waffle House. So we had a great time. Philip Anderson was waiting with me, waiting on Big O outside the prison. So we spent some time together and just really had a great time. The celebration.
Well, Dave, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. I'm so glad that we've gotten to know each other. I feel like you're my brother. And, don't stop fighting. Don't stop fighting. I'll keep telling your stories anytime. If you want a story told, you know where to get me. So let everybody know where they can reach you and where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. StopHate.com is always the one place you can go to find us. On X, we are at Help Stop Hate. So Help Stop Hate. Look us up. We've put everything out that we can for free. It's tools for you to use in your battle day to day in the world. And otherwise, don't find me. I'm not trying to get popular or anything off this. I just want freedom for our people, and it's not about me at all. It's about the J6ers and their plight. And otherwise, hey, these stories, this battle continues. J6 is not over, and it's not a one-up. If you don't fix this, that template continues. So just remember, more to come. Same bat time, same bat channel, all that stuff. But we have this movie coming out Saturday. Everybody look for Pardon Us, Justice for All at 1afilmfest.com and stophate.com. Links everywhere. Condemned USA with Trennis. And we're really just stoked about this film. I hope it really explains what we're going through. People can understand it.
Yep, and make sure to share it. I'll make sure to share it, and everybody be the Well of Balsam commercial. Thanks so much, Dave, for coming on, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, that's our show for this week. If you didn't know, I think most of you know by now that I am the vice chair of the Ventura County Republican Party because we flipped it to MAGA. Within 3 weeks of taking control of the party, we put together a gala that is going to be mind-blowing for people, and it's sold out in 2 weeks. So Ventura County, we are going to turn this county red. You got a party now that's going to fight for you. You got a party now that's actually not going to be broken bouncing checks. And you got a party that is going to support our local candidates. So everybody, make sure to follow me at Lori Mills, the number 4, CA42 on X. And make sure, if you'd like to get on our mailing list, email me at lori@uncoverkelly.info, and we'll get you on our mailing list. And everybody, don't give up, don't give in, and never, ever surrender. We'll see you next week.